90-minute Mirror exclusive. This is Zain Khan. Today, our interview will be with a prominent British journalist who's also famous for her activism. We have none other than Yvonne Ridley to discuss about her life and also the future of her career. Welcome to our show, Yvonne Ridley. This is Zain Khan. It is such a pleasure having you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yvonne Ridley, I want to get to the first question. Your capture by the Taliban and obviously your conversion to Islam was a fascinating story. Can you share your experience and what led you to actually go to such a complex region of Afghanistan to do your story, to do your journalism there? And how did that change the trajectory of your career?
Well, I remember it very well. September 2001, the Taliban were the ruling government in Afghanistan, and George Bush and Tony Blair were about to go to war in Afghanistan. I wanted to find out more about the Taliban. And subsequently, my curiosity got me arrested. I had entered the country without a passport and visa and was arrested and locked up for 11 days. But during that time, I was able to see that Islam was more than just a religion. It was actually a way of life. It was the way people ate, the way they slept, the way they dressed, the way they behaved. Everything was dictated by their religion. And so, unsurprisingly, they invited me to embrace Islam. Although I declined at the time, I did say, if you let me go, I promise I will read your holy book and study Islam. And against all the odds, while they held on to other Westerners, I was released. And so I fulfilled the promise and set out on a journey which was meant to be an educational journey, but it turned very quickly into a spiritual journey. And then 2 years later, I ended up embracing Islam. So it was life-changing, absolutely.
When you were going to go to Afghanistan to do your story, were you scared about the consequences to moving to a region like Afghanistan with a Taliban-type government?
Well, I look back now and I just think, what on earth were you thinking about doing, going into to Afghanistan? But I wasn't scared. I certainly did not intend to be arrested. So any fear that I had, it was I wasn't really scared. I guess I was made of tougher stuff in those days, because I don't think it's something that I would embark on today.
You also pursued your journalism in the Middle East, and that's also a very complex region. How was your experience while doing journalism in the Middle East, its pros and cons, and how was it like?
Well, I covered the revolutions in the Arab world during the Arab Spring or awakening, and in fact, I got arrested in Libya by a militia group for trying to break into a prison, Abu Salim prison, since I was doing a documentary. I wanted to get inside the prison, which had housed most of Colonel Gaddafi's political prisoners. This is where the torture and abuse had gone on. And unfortunately, I was arrested. And that was concerning for me, because nobody was really in charge. There were all these rival militia groups. But within a matter of hours, I was able to disentangle myself from the situation. But it was concerning because I just thought if news gets out about this, the world will be saying, "Oh my God, what's wrong with this woman? You know, it's her again causing problems."
Did they recognize you of who you were? How did you get out? How did you manage that?
We had photographs with Sadi al-Sadi, who was a very senior figure in the militia movement, and that photograph just opened doors for us. And they they contacted him and realized that if she knows him, she must be okay.
So you had photographs because you interviewed him during your
Yes,
documentary?
yes. So that was lucky. But I think that they would have realized anyway, eventually, that that I meant them no harm. And so yes, it was but as I say, that was scary because unlike the Taliban and just one of them and one government, with the militias in Libya, there were many, and some were rivals, some were Al Qaeda, some were from other groups that, really I didn't know a great deal about. But it is one of the hazards of covering a conflict area.
Investigative journalism often holds people in powerful positions accountable. What is the future for journalism of this sort, especially in the digital age of social media?
I was quite pessimistic until last week when I saw Generation Z literally shake America to its core. And I remembered the scenes of the Vietnam anti-war campaigners, and it's come full cycle. And this latest generation of young people, they don't like being lied to. They don't like politicians lying to them. And they're very active, and they know their rights. And I am so impressed by them. I'm inspired by them, this new generation. I was a bit downhearted over the millennials because this won't be popular with some, but I always thought that the millennials carried this self-entitlement around and were very sort of me, whereas Generation Z is up for justice, wants to see justice being done, and they will go out and fight for it. So I'm very optimistic now about the state of journalism. It was in the hands of a handful of global publishers. It is now gone. There are many enterprising initiatives, podcasts like yours, for example, that the mainstream media just can't compete with because they have a fixed narrative. Whereas the questions so far from you have been very open and not, you don't appear to have a specific agenda other than the truth. And the truth, what is controversial about the truth? My God, that if the mainstream media could only start practicing and standing up for truth and justice, They would increase their viewers, they would increase their readers. It would be quite a different situation.
I've always wanted to ask you about the UK political scene. How is the United Kingdom's political scene going these days? What are your thoughts and feedback about that? Tell us a little more.
Well, it's a two-party system, basically. There are a few little groups, but it's a two-party system of Conservatives, which is like the American Republicans, and Labour, which is like the Democrats. And just as in America, unfortunately, British politics has been bought and owned by the Zionists. You know, there's just this Friends of Israel, and you just have to go onto their website and you see what it's about, which is promoting Israel.
Which political party would your thoughts align with the most? I mean, obviously you would disagree with the political parties, but which one are you more closer to ideologically?
Well, I initially joined the Labour Party as a teenager and was forced to leave in 2003 because of its position on the war in Iraq. And I remember having a conversation with a legendary, much-loved politician called Tony Benn. And he said to me, stay in the Labour Party, otherwise you will become politically homeless. And there are far too many good people out there who are politically homeless. And he was right in many ways. But the following year, the Respect Party was launched by George Galloway, who is a staunch supporter of the Palestinians and always has been. And so I joined the Respect Party. And that had a great trajectory, you know, and it was destined to become a major force on the British political landscape.
Are you currently part of the party?
No, it collapsed in the end, and I often wonder where it would be today if it was still on the go. But I mentioned before George Galloway. George Galloway has launched another party called the Workers' Party. It's for working class people. And as usual, you know, George has got his finger on the pulse of the street. And he was elected as the MP for Rochdale. An absolutely astonishing victory. But what was important about that victory, he got more votes than all of the other parties put together. But apart from that, the person who came second was an independent candidate. And I think that voters have now become quite empowered and emboldened and realize that in enough numbers, they can actually make a change. So what happened with George inspired a lot of us to stand as independents. And that is what I'm doing in my home city of Newcastle. I've moved from Scotland. I've spent more than a decade in Scotland fighting for independence. But that movement has carries its own problems. And I just thought I can do much more if I move back into England and stand as an independent. I haven't given up on Scottish independence. I've just put it on a back burner while they sort themselves out politically. But
So
I'm now
you're
standing as an
literally breaking the
independent.
news that you've now got into politics actively again from your area?
Yes. I'm like one of those boxers that gets knocked down and just picks themselves up and carries on going. And it's very sort of sobering and concentrating when you fail in something. But it's how you act after that failure that really counts.
When are the next
And
elections coming up?
well, we're
And from
waiting for the
where are you going to stand as an independent?
Right, I'm going to stand in Newcastle Central and West. I've got a fantastic team of people from Generation Z to old trouts like me, working to do a campaign. We've got some brilliant ideas, and I'm just, waiting for Rishi Sunak to call the election. And I think that the political landscape in Britain will change. I think you'll still have the two-party system, but I think that it will be really damaged. And I think that you'll see the rise of parties like George Galloway's, like independents, moving forwards. People have lost faith in their judicial system, it's the judicial system, it's the government system, the lawmakers, the trust has gone.
Last question. If I was to ask you, what are your top 5 priorities if you come into power, your to-do list as a politician, what are you promising the people?
I would fight for justice. I would fight against poverty. I would continue the fight against war and weapons. And I would want Britain to be known more for its humanity than being complicit in a genocide. And I would also work hard to make sure that the legal system is a level playing ground and not just a playground for the rich. There is a huge gap opening up between the rich and the poor, and we must close that. In Newcastle, one of the big success stories is food banks. And yes, it's a reflection on the hospitality and kindness and generosity of the people of Newcastle. But we don't want to be known for having the most food banks to put bread on the table for people who can't afford to feed their children. And many of these people are hardworking people who have full-time jobs. Of course, the other thing that I'd love to protect are the jobs of the health workers in our brilliant National Health Service, which is itself in intensive care at the moment.
Thank you so much, Yvonne Ridley, for being on Minute Mayor Exclusive. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
This was Yvonne Ridley, a prominent British journalist and also an activist. We were discussing her life and the future of her career. Until the next episode of Minute Mayor Exclusive, this is Zain Khan. Take care. Goodbye.